My glasses are covered in fluff. Alright, I bet Twitch is caught on by now. Yep, we're live. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell the world about it. Streaming, game dev, doing faces still, doing overlays and bone fixes today. Paste. And then over here, someone's asking me questions on Twitch about why AR is so important. Uh, so I'll just respond, and then I'll hit tweet. And then we'll get back to what we're doing. And what we're doing is, of course, faces. We're always going to be doing faces until we go off the deep end. And, that will be fun. But what we're going to do today is twofold. We're just going to fix the bones, and then we're going to create overlay layers. And I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the double overlay setup I've got, or if I'm going to switch to a texture array. I'm going to try and switch to a texture array and see how that works. But first, bone fixes. So the basic problem that we've got with this head, is this the head we're still using? No, we're using the head new UV. We'll just go ahead and call this head old. Well, that's taken a while. So, the problem is with our head new UV and the head old and all the other heads we've created is that the bones, some idiot set them up, and the result is that they are not able to express things like neck movements and stuff. The bones on the actual face are fine, but we want to be able to have our shoulders and our neck and our stuff like that all work out. So that means we're just going to go in here and we are going to modify these bones a little bit. And so to do that, we're just going to drag this down. And we're going to have to do some repainting, but we're going to try and avoid repainting the face because we've basically painted the face and I don't want to do it again. It's a lot of work. So we're just going to do it like this, and then we are going to extrude out to the sides for the shoulders, turn on some forked extrusion. And I don't need to have the shoulders look good. The shoulders will never be real. They'll never, they'll never actually have arms attached or have any sort of complicated setups. But I think it's important for us to be able to do things like shrug. So that's what we're doing right now. If we now go back out and start to rotate, you can see that these new bones aren't bound at all. So that's our next step. We're going to paint this up and make it so that it has the correct bindings. Now, I could just rebind it, but the problem with rebinding it is simply that I would need to do all the face work again. So we're going to strictly limit ourselves to the bottom here. And we're just going to switch off of blur. I'm not sure why blur. There's no default. Apparently there's no default. Let's just use mix then. It's not painting. Or if it is painting, it's not showing. There we are. So there we go. And we'll just, this is going to be the bottom of the neck like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a blur brush, back to blur, and make it so that when you do move your neck, it's not a sudden seam, because that would be weird. I can't see. Is that really only showing up on the material brush? So I have to create another light just to be able to see what I'm doing? That's really dumb. All right, so let's go ahead and create some lights. Create, why is lights not an option here? Oh, because we're in edit mode. So I have to switch. Okay, this is really, I really wish that it was easier to do this. Rick Metalster says, hello, hello. And that should do. I think we'll be able to see it now. So we're going to go back into weight paint mode. There we go. Still can't see it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and... we've got lots of lights, so I'm not sure why we can only see this one light that I just created. These lights are apparently bugged out. I'm going to go ahead and delete them. And then we're going to just create this light. And then we're going to duplicate it and rotate Y 180. That didn't work at all. Rotate Y 180. Oh, come on. There we are. There, now we have lights from both sides now. And we should be able to see what the heck we're doing. Hooray! So we're just going to switch back to multiply, or mix rather, and we're going to lower the weight, or is it the strength? I can never remember which of these is which. We're going to lower the strength significantly and just kind of brush up the neck a touch, like so. And then we'll go back to blur. Rick Metalster says weight painting, ouch. Well, the good news is we're doing a really easy task today for the weight painting because we're not touching the face. All we're doing is making sure that the shoulders exist. Yeah, so you can see how when we bend this, the result has this crease running along the neck. And that's the sort of thing that you get when you just throw shit together without caring too much. But one of the things we have to consider is when you're bending your neck forward and backwards, where does it actually bend? And the answer is not there. So we're going to try and move the core element of this so that... What the hell? Select this thing here. Okay, so I can't select it. Fine. Object mode. Jeez, what an annoyance. So what we're going to do is we're just going to edit this bone so that it is near the back. And then we're going to move it up a notch. Now, this is still going to give us a lot of compression on the front of the neck, though. So maybe I actually... Let's try it at the front, then we'll try it at the back. We'll see which one looks better, because it's been a while since I've done this, so I can't remember. Yeah, so if we put it at the front... No, that looks terrible. I thought it would, because that's not where the bones actually are. Here we are. The bones actually are here near the back. But it may be that this is in the wrong spot, and we have to be like this. And now that I'm looking at it, I don't know whether we've got a separate neck and head. We don't. Okay, so we're going to want to subdivide this, because we do want a separate neck and head bone. It's just easier to work with it when we're like that. Mifa says to press Z while in paint mode, which is probably a Blender shortcut that lets me select shit. Yeah, so obviously the painting is crap, so we're going to just go back into paint mode here. Weight paint, and we're going to have to re-weight some of this stuff. For some reason, I can't see what the fuck is going on. Okay, so I'm not sure what happened, but apparently it errored out. Okay, I thought when you subdivided a bone, it would be a little bit more careful about it, but apparently it just like, whatever, and screws up. So that's not great. Oh, I see. We're still using... the names, the brushes have names. I'm used to just selecting the type of blend and not caring about the brush in question. So it's like, yeah, why is it always the blur? And it's because it's the blur brush. I keep changing the blend type of the blur brush, but it's still the blur brush. So this is theoretically a bone with no binds, but if that's the case, I kind of wonder how it is pulling up the sternum like that, because sure as shit, that should be part of this bone. And I wonder whether it's just an error on behalf of... can I switch the... Yeah, okay, so I can just switch. I wonder if it's an error on the part of the... painting, or maybe it's bound to like the jaw or something. I'm not sure. Well, either way, what we can do is we can just bind it here using auto normalize, and whatever else it's bound to will just go away. I was thinking about removing shadows. Oh yeah, thanks, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So here you can see that while we do have some problems with compression, that's not too bad. I think we can fix it a little bit better by switching over to the armature and then just moving this bone up a little bit more. And now, yeah, that's basically how I want the head to be. And now here comes the neck, because the neck is a separate object, right? And we're going to need to bring this paint back down into this, because I'm not going to want to have a neck that adjusts that much. And so the idea with the neck is that if we really, really reduce the weight on the lower portion of the neck, it'll just give us another way to handle it. So we're going to reduce the strength down to like this, and then select this core element, and then we're just going to gently take over the neck. And then we'll just use some blur brush to bring it back down. And I'm just kind of half-assing it, so don't be surprised if this isn't the way you would do it, because it's not the way I would normally do it either. This neck doesn't feel right. Is it this that the bone is too low? Do I have to move this bone up? Is that going to help? Oh no, that's not going to help. What am I missing here? There's something obvious that I've forgotten about when it comes to handling this. Clearly that's much too high for starters. I've done necks correctly before, but it's been so long since I've rigged one that I've completely forgotten where the bone goes. So Rick Middlester says, is it possible to add limits to the rotation? Oh, sure. But there's no reason to do that, since none of this is going to be generative stuff. This is all just going to be me creating animations. So I don't need to worry about that, because I'll just not create animations that don't work. And to some extent, every amateur rigging situation is like that. You're going to create animations on your own so you can hide the animations that reveal where you suck. And in this case, it appears that the neck is where I suck, but it might be that I can bring it back by using a low strength brush. I'm just trying to figure out, I've forgotten. It's amazing, because it's like, you're not going to forget how to rig the neck. I mean, come on. But you do. It's like, why can't you remember how to do this? Look at that. Look at how much loss we've got there. And I think that's because it's not a heavy enough red. I actually think this might still be too high. Woo! That actually feels like it might be about right. Obviously, I've got to reweight it, though, so that's what we're going to do. Whoops. We're going to just drag this weight down to 0 and begin to remove the portions that shouldn't be pulled around. So, like that. Now when we rotate this forward, you can see that we still have a problem where the neck ends up folding in on itself down here. Now, I've done this in the past in ways that didn't require an adjustment bone to try and make that not happen. So I'm trying to think of the best way to do it, and I think that the only way is to sort of paint it while it's in this pose and try and figure out how it should look. But fundamentally, we're rolling our neck forward in... I guess that might be too low now. So if I were to take this bone and move it up. Yeah, you know what? That's fine. We're going to go ahead and leave it like that for now. Let's just do a couple of basic tests on rotations. So we'll have to get rid of some of that, obviously. So that crease that's forming at the side of the neck here has to go. Let's go ahead and get it gone. And it's just because I was weight painting without bothering to, actually take a look at what it should look like. We'll use some blur to just kind of soften that edge a little bit. We're not expecting our characters to do any neck gymnastics, so I don't really mind if it's not a great rig for that, but we do want to be able to, do things like turn your head and stuff. Now, the idea here is that you're not turning your head from the base of your neck. So we're going to get some neck action, and then we're going to get some head action like this. And you can see that that's not too bad in terms of the deformation there. So I think that this is probably going to be fine. And similarly, when we bring our head forward, I'll probably animate it more like this. But the problem with that is that I can't get them to look up and bring their head forward, which is actually a pose that's pretty common without causing us to have some issues there. So what I'm thinking is that when I do that, I'm going to have to tilt the whole body forward like this, and then tilt the head back. And that's probably fine as long as I know that I have to do that. There's also a lot of other things you can do, like I can squish the neck and scale it and stuff like that. So the next thing we want to do is paint these bones so that they are part of the shoulder. And I'm hoping that X mirroring is on. Good. And that's just a matter of making sure that we can do basic shoulder animations. We don't need to do anything exceptional. We just need to be able to do things like shrug. And so to shrug, what you're going to do is you're going to bring this up and then bring this down, right? I don't know. Is that right? So when we do that, you can see that we've got a fair amount of damage to the curve of the skin. To fix that, we're going to bring our strength down, and then we're going to paint the damaged area just with a very large, soft brush. And then we're going to smooth it away. Oh, come on. And you can see that we've got one error-prone mesh loop here. This edge loop goes doink, and that's because it's colored green here when this one is not. So if we use a blur, we can probably bring that back under control without having to worry too much about it, like that. Yeah, just soften everything down, because we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for something that lets us do basic motions. Yep, that should do. So when I unrotate everything, another option I have is I can dissociate these from the oh, it's not offset. Sorry, it's not. I'm selecting the mesh, not the bone. There we are. I can dissociate these from the parent bone. If I can remember how. I can't disconnect it. Oh, I have to be in edit mode. There we are. And if you're wondering why I'd want to be able to do that, it's because that way I can adjust things more freely, which gives me a lot more freedom to kind of pretend that you've got that full ball joint and pinions that we have as humans. So that's kind of useful. And I'm also going to do that for this. Why can't I disconnect it? Oh, because I'm... I wonder. So that I'll be able to do things like bring this down and then move the head independently of it. So if we just disconnect a lot of these bones, it'll give me a lot more freedom. So basically, when I want to move the neck forward, I can bring this down and then rotate it and then bring this up and create whatever sort of pose I'd like. And I can also give people different length necks and stuff like that. So that's it. We've fixed the bone structure. We may come back to it someday soon, but that should be enough for right now. I'll head back over into everybody's favorite Unity. And I wonder whether or not this will work. Yeah, it did, I think. Did it? Is this the right bone structure? Yeah, it should be. Let's go ahead and just double check, though. Yeah, hoo, hoo, ha, 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 ha. And obviously the plan is to, at some point, have clothes meshes, but at the moment we're not going to bother. We also need to have hair meshes, which I kind of want to do in Blender 2.8, but Blender 2.8 doesn't properly import into Unity yet. So I'd have to do like something where I manually export hundreds of haircuts, and that seems like a real pain in the ass. So what we're going to do today now is go in and create some overlay meshes. We're going to start by just creating the makeup mesh again. We had a makeup mesh, but it's now wrong. So if we look at the old UV, our makeup mesh is going to end up making our characters have a weird looking mustache rather than being on the lips because we moved the face around. So basically we're just going to remake that the same thing again. And to do that, we're going to need to choose a base mesh just to get our anchor points correct. And, oh, look, I happen to have them open. So that's what we're going to do. Give me a moment, actually. I've got to do some wrangling. And burp directly into the mic. Yeah, okay, so that should be fine. Yes, I'll bring you back here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save this as makeup 1. And we're just going to actually create a makeup layer. Pull out my tablet, get ourselves to work. First things first, we're just going to try and get a feel for where the lip edges actually are, because I don't have, this skin doesn't have a strong sense of that. But we're going to want to turn on some symmetry so that we can get a good feel for it. And notice that it's not straight up, which is kind of not an issue, but unfortunate. So we're going to just go ahead and choose like this, just to get a feel for how much the lips have expanded. If I'm not mistaken, this will end up being radically too large. Like it'll end up being like hilariously huge lips. Also, for overlays, what we may want to do is have an alpha mask. Ooh. My ears are popping. That's not great. Sorry. Trying to, my ears are making squidgy poppy noises, which happens sometimes, but always annoying. I bet you can't hear it, since it's inside my head. Right, so let's bring the makeup over. First off, this is what the makeup looks like now. You can see how it's on the top of the lip there. That's obviously the wrong location, so we're just going to grab our makeup and drop it in. Unfortunately for us, we have to manually set the alpha every time. That didn't seem to work. Oh, that's right. We had to save it as a PNG last time, too. So that's what we'll do. We'll just save it as a PNG. No biggie. It's always going to be compiled internally by Unity anyway, so who cares? So this one, we're going to go ahead and set alpha as transparency, and it'll work. And then we'll delete the other one, so we won't have two things named makeup 1. And then we'll just go over to the head and drop the new makeup in. Oh, it's down at the bottom. Come on, down we go. There we go. Oh, okay, so that helped a lot. Our new texture, our new UV map really did expand the amount of space that we were using. Because as you remember, the reason I created the new one, the new UV map, is because when I did this overlay, the lips were like 2 pixels, and it was like you can't do that, and you can't see what's going on. Now there are a lot of ways to do this that are not simply me. Rellin says I updated to 2018.3 today. Don't. Okay, I won't. Yeah, so I've had problems with Unity's updates so many times that I never update until they have a critical feature that I need, and I don't need any of those critical features. So we're just going to bring this back, and we're going to expand the lips. Now, notice that the interior of the lips here is like inside the mouth, and we're probably not going to want to have lipstick on the inside of the mouth. We'll go ahead and take a look once we do this. Now, it's much easier to add than to delete due to the failure of this software program to actually have mirrored erase. I'm not sure why that is. pop on over back into Unity here. All right. So we're getting to the point where the lipstick is, covering much of the mouth. We're just going to keep pushing it until it feels like there's a little too much lipstick, at which point we will add in an alpha mask that will allow us to determine exactly how much lip you want your lipstick to cover. And this is just because this is one of the more hard things to create in terms of where it falls on the face and stuff like that. So we're just going to go through and, we'll do things like scars and stuff, but those are going to be a lot easier. And we won't be able to tell whether or not the basic setup is any good if we do the easy ones first. All right, so that looks like it is a lot of lip. And so what we'll do is we have two things we have to do. First, we have to darken the interior of the mouth. And the other thing is we need to add in some alpha to the exterior. The problem with adding in alpha to the exterior is that the erase doesn't have a mirror, which is dumb. So what we're going to end up doing is probably a select, and then, yeah, we'll figure it out. Anyway, let's go ahead and create some soft, and then what we'll do is we'll add in not just gray, but also some orange to give us the interior of the mouth here. No, I didn't. Hold on. Boop, 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 boom, boom, boop. Lock. There we are. All right, so save that. Yeah, the Roland says that he's having the same problem I was having with the namespace being arbitrarily hijacked by completely separate namespaces that shouldn't be involved. And you might be thinking this white is ridiculous, and it is, but this is like the thickest possible thing you could put on. So if we were to go down and turn it to a more acceptable color, it would be like this, for example. You can do whatever sort of colors you want, and it can be as transparent as you want. The problem we've got is that the lip is not as glossy as it should be. And I think that's because when I created this, I didn't end up... That's the overlay. When I created this, I didn't end up making the lips... Let's just recreate it. We'll go back and recreate... Okay, so you can see how the lips are pretty glossy. See how we're barely getting any sort of shine off the lips? I think what we need to do is create a new map. The problem is that things change the shininess of your face. Like, certain lipsticks are shinier than others. Well, we can do that later. Who cares? Sorry, my ears are making clicking noises. Like I got water in them. Well, onward. So, if we take a look at it here in game mode, you can see that this would probably be about the right amount of glossiness for the lips, but when I do it like that, the rest of the face turns into like a sheet. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in and redo the glossiness map. There's no reason not to. But for that, I have to open up ZBrush. So I might do it off screen. Nah, I'll do it now. Just give me a second. It's starting up ZBrush crashes the OBS. So give you a different window for a bit so it doesn't do that. And while it's opening, I'll tug on my ear. I'm sure this is fascinating for the people who can't hear the inside of my head, which happens to be most of humanity, as it turns out. Now I'm going to import a 3D mesh. It's going to be head new UV for ZBrush, and Then we're going to draw it in. Oh, I forgot to bring you back. Give me back here. There you are. So I'm all for... so Rick Middlester says, why are you using wrinkles right from the get-go? Just because I wanted to make sure wrinkles worked. It's not like every character is going to have a wrinkle map, but wrinkle maps have to work. So that's... okay, so I screwed that up, didn't I? Try that again. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add in some subdivisions, and then we're going to paint the character. And we're going to go ahead and create a fairly dark gray. Now the reason for this is simply because... come on. Now the reason for this is simply because we are going to need to have a lot of space, a lot of dynamic range. So we're going to go ahead and just make the default fairly gray, and we can adjust that as we need. And then we'll fill the object with gray. Then we'll switch up to a white, and we'll start to paint this. So the problem we were having is that the lips weren't shiny enough. Now the truth of the matter is that the lips were perfectly shiny. It was that the rest of the face was too close in shininess to the lips. So we're just going to go ahead and shiny up our lips. And then we're going to just really bring it to as white as possible. And then we're actually going to go ahead and bring it into a gray and use a slightly less intense brush to bring brightness into the rest of our face here. Click, click, click in my head. There we are. And I'm just gonna... yeah, I should be fine. Let's bring this down a little notch so that it's not quite as noticeable up there. Let's go ahead and try this as an alternative shininess map. Of course, we want our ears to have some wax on them. So let's bring it in. Got those greasy ears. And I think that we probably want to go a little bit wider on the forehead. Not much, though, like that. And then we'll bring this down so it's not quite as... there we are. And we can just bring it up a touch on the upper area here and down here. And then we'll call that a day. So if we were to use our multi-map exporter, texture from Polypaint, create all maps, go into the correct directory. Let's move this back down to the side so that I can use my mouse again. And where is it? It's in here. It's this. So you can see that this versus this, there's a substantial difference in terms of what gets the priority. So we're going to call this Gloss Map 2. And we're going to try it as an alternative and see whether or not it makes the lips feel a little bit better. Oh no, I didn't get it. What happened? There we are. So basically, with this, we can actually bring the gloss up quite high, almost half higher than it was before, without seeing anything on the nose, whereas previously we got something that looked like this on the nose. So if we bring it up like this, it might actually be that I've played down the rest of the face too much, but we can go ahead and deal with that as we please. So now we've got lip gloss. Let's go ahead and we have two options. We can either add in an alpha mask, or we can just create multiple lip types and stuff. We're going to go ahead and create multiple lip types because now that I'm thinking about it, creating an alpha mask means, well, it means that we're going to have hard edges, which is fine for makeup, but it's not great for things like scars or freckles or stuff like that. So we're not going to create an alpha mask. The only thing we could do with an alpha mask to make it not have a hard edge would be to reduce the alpha to a different range and then lerp between, make it so that if you choose an alpha of 0.25, then 0.25 becomes 0, and we readjust the entire range with a lerp. That might not be too bad. I'm trying to think if there's other things we would use an alpha mask for. Like, if we had a scar, would there be any use for an alpha mask? Because we would be drawing in a big scar and then trying to reduce it down to a small scar. But scars have puckering. Also, the alpha mask is something where we would want to have full opaqueness, except where it's... No, I don't think the alpha mask idea is going to work. We're just going to create a couple different lipsticks. There's no reason to create them now, though. We'll go ahead and call the lipstick complete. We'll just call this lipstick one. And we're going to want to create a new directory specifically for overlays. And then we're just going to create a couple more overlays to test out some stuff with. So we've got our really, really hilariously aggressive lipstick, which will serve us well when we're trying to do other lip-related things. But let's switch away, and I don't actually know how things like eyeshadow and stuff like that work. So I'm going to go ahead and skip those for now. But what we'll do is we'll work with a different sort of focus, and that's going to be, let's go ahead and put in a scar. So we're going to save this in the overlays directory as scar1, and then draw in a scar. So there's a lot of ways to draw in scars, and the real issue is, how do you want your scar to look? Because, I mean, there are, like, thin scars and thick scars and puckered scars and not puckered scars and red scars and white scars. And the answer is that what we're going to do is we're going to just create a basic scar to start with, and then we will create other scars later on. So this is going to just be a standard eyebrow scar, just a simple little thing like this. And what we'll do to make it feel a little bit better is we are going to create a duplicate, and then down here, up here, we're going to go ahead and use correct drawing line, correct line width, thin line by 1, like that. And then we can preserve this and mark it up as a darker color, like so. And we're going to want to add in some redness to that so that it feels natural. There we are. And so now what we'll do is we'll save that as scar1. And then we will put it on someone's face. People are still debating whether the newest Unity update is worthwhile, which I'm glad it's someone besides me debating it, because I have no patience for Unity. Let's go and put that in as the other. So if we take a look, you can see that I've sort of put it a little bit low. It's actually crossing into the eye, which is not really what I wanted. Easy fix, we'll just grab both of these layers and move the whole thing up. And hit save again. Yeah, that's not quite right either. Now, one of the things we can do is we can allow you to move these objects around on your own as you like. In fact, that already is built right in. So we can swoop, 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 swoop. But the problem is that the UVs distort. This isn't a UV set that's projected. If you're going to allow people to move objects around, you have to use a projection system. And I didn't build one, so we're not going to, which will limit how diverse things like scars end up being. But I think that's probably okay. We're probably okay with whatever we would like. Now, one of the other problems with this scar is that it has no normal map associated with it. And this is one of the reasons I was thinking about switching over into using texture arrays. But we're going to go ahead and try it. So this is what it looks like when you have a scar and bright pink lipstick. Let's go ahead and bring this lipstick way down so it's not quite as aggressive. And what I'd like to have happen is I'd like to be able to add in a scar texture as well as a scar normal, and I'd also like to be able to add in 100 other things. So that's what we're going to be doing. We are going to edit this shader. But I think what I want to do is duplicate it. So I really want to find where I put it. I think it's in here or here. Custom skin, there it is. We're going to just duplicate that shader with a Control D. We're going to call this array skin, and we're going to open it up. Got some slowdown. I think I need to reboot my machine. That's fine, though. Here it is. This is our beast, and we're going to rename it because it still has the same name, which means it'll show up weird. So we're going to make sure that it's named something different. And then we're just going to change all of this crap out for arrays. How nice, right? So let's find ourselves a texture array. Here it is. So I don't know how texture arrays work. Fetches a texture from a texture 2D array given an index value. That's interesting, because if we want to go through all of the textures, how would we do that? So where's the texture 2V? There's no texture 2D array. There's just a texture array. Asset file. Oh, so it's a special kind of file. Never mind. My bad. The problem is that it requires a texture array file, which I don't know how to build. So I guess we're sticking with this. And what we'll have to do is... seriously, I want an array. Well, there is a triplanar sample. I believe the triplanar sample actually does... you know what? I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and just replace overlay 1 for a second with this triplanar sample. And see what sort, whether or not we can do some nice UV projection without actually doing any work. That would be a nice trick. It's probably not true, but we'll go ahead and give it a shot. So if we take a look back over here at the head, we're currently using the custom skin, and we need to switch over to using the array skin. Hello? 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 What the fuck is going on? That was friggin' weird. What's happening here? I don't know what's happening. For some reason it didn't respond for a really long time. Maybe it was recompiling. So here we've got top texture 0, which we're going to replace with that new scar texture. Boom. And it's not visible at all, but I don't know whether or not that's just because it is not set up properly. So we're gonna increase the tiling and see whether or not we can ever spot it, because I'm not sure how this works. I don't believe that it works the way I want it to work, which is kind of a shame. Yeah, it doesn't seem to actually do what we need it to do. Let me just quickly Google it. Why not? Let's waste some time looking into Google here. So if we take a look, what is this? Mapping spherical or cylindrical, space. Oop, I clicked off of it. Space of world, normal map, use texture array. Tiling and fall off. Let's take a look. It does what I want it to do according to this, but let's go ahead and add in a texture that's a little bit different. Maybe if we add in something that's really, really obvious, it'll become much clearer. So let's add in some rock. So my problem is that I might be adding in a texture. So we're just going to have this overlay be just flat applied, I think. Boom. Now we're obviously ruining this. It's not going to end up working right because of the side, cuts we're making here. Aha! So there we are. So it's probably just something I was doing with a little bit of the multiple wasn't working out just due to the way that we were working with it. So if I put in a scar here, so you can see that it's got some slapping onto the face going here, but even though it says it's a triplanar sample, it doesn't appear to be doing it very well. I guess it's supposed to be specifically for things like moss. So it's doing some repetition even though I'm not telling it to and stuff like that. So we don't want to do that. Which means that the number of overlays we can allow is going to be pretty strictly limited. I don't think there's any way for me to just take an arbitrary number of textures and stack them. So yep, so this is not going to work out. We're going to go ahead and delete this and move this back to being the other custom skin. And we can just drop the scar right back in. Boop. And we'll just go ahead and remove the array skin. So the issue here is that we're not going to be able to put on an unlimited number of scars unless we add in a new texture, or sorry, a new material on top of this one. But I'm not sure that will work. One of the issues we've got is that we have a mesh with several sub-textures, sub-materials. If we add in another material, what will Unity do? And that's a good question, so that's what we're going to find out. Let's add in just a generic material, something that doesn't have any sort of humanness to it, like this one. So we'll just drop that in. And you can see that what's happening is it's applying it to the eyelashes rather than to the skin. And if we create more and more of these, it continues to just apply these to just the eyelashes. The reason for that is because it just sticks in a loop on the last material. I'm not sure whether or not it's possible to tell it to use these for specific submeshes. Another option is we can make them separate meshes. We can pull the eyelashes off, we can pull the eyebrows out, and we can turn them into separate meshes. The reason I haven't done that is because they have very similar related mesh deforms, the shape keys. So if I were to rip them apart, then the shape keys become a nuisance. I actually don't know if I can do this. I think the Relin is talking to Mifaz, but if he's talking to me, tell me. Alright, so what we're going to have to do is accept the limitations that we've got, but that means that what I really want to do is create an array of textures on my own. And I think 2 is too few. So basically there are going to be things that we're going to want to apply to the face. And when I'm thinking about the number of things we want to apply, we want to be able to have someone that has freckles, a scar, and makeup. So I'm thinking 3 overlay textures. The problem is that each of those overlay textures can have normals attached to them as well. So for example, if we were going to, what we could do is we could go into this overlay, duplicate the scar, and call this a scar normal, scar1 normals. We can make this into a normal map with the create from grayscale option turned on. And then if we go over into the head and we drop that into one of our normals, what we get is a fairly convincing scar. Now we've got the normals turned up pretty high here, so if we bring it down, And what that means is that we really do want the ability to have normals. Now, when we look at it from a distance, you might be thinking that the normals aren't really going to be visible, but I found that, if anything, normals are more important on small objects because the sight of the light hitting the skin changes very dramatically depending on how your normals are set up. And you can see that here if you're looking. There is a bright line happening right here. Now, the actual albedo there is dark, but because we've got it defined as a raised element in our normal map, it becomes something where we can see it. Now, if we were to zoom out, you can see how this sort of becomes more and more noticeable the smaller it gets, rather than becoming less and less noticeable. If we pull out to the scene here, we've got this tiny little camera preview, which I can't make any bigger. But if we were to bring this out like this, go over into game view, you can see how small the character is, and you can see the scar. And I don't know whether you can see this on YouTube or not, but the brightness lining the edge is pretty noticeable. If I bring down that normal to 0, so you can see the sort of change that happens, and that means that, to be honest, if I were to take this scar off entirely, just make it completely transparent, and only use normals, I bet that the normals would make it look... Okay, so no, I do need both. Maybe I don't need the normals. Am I just making shit up? I might just be making shit up. That's not normals, that's AO. You're an idiot. This is normals. I mean, I can see the difference, but I'm not sure it's worth it. All right, so we're not going to do normals. That's going to be radically simplifying our procedure, because if we have normals, then we've got to have like 6, and that's too many. So it's going to be okay if we don't use normals for this. It's only something we can do because we're talking about small characters. It does mean that when we do things like scars, we're going to have to be really aggressive in terms of making them big and noticeable. So that's going to be fun. But for now, we're going to want to redo our shader so that it has 3 slots, maybe even 4 for overlays. So that's what we're going to do. So one of the issues I've got here is that these overlays have a texture and a UV that they are forced to accept. And the problem with that is that it takes up space. I guess that's okay. We're never going to use them is the thing. Never. So can I override them? Let's go ahead and see if I can override them with a constant. So if we take a UV sample here. If we do it like this, and then we save... It didn't remove the tiling, so I don't think we'll be able to remove the tiling. Can we remove it here? Default texture, AutoCast UV set, MIP mode. No. Okay, so we're gonna have to live with it. Okay. Good news is this is kind of modular. The bad news is that it doesn't actually have a very good modular setup. What we're gonna do is we're gonna switch over into using the layer combine. So for that, we're going to want to put in here layered blend. Here we are. Is there another layered blend that doesn't have a base blend operations? Source, Destiny. Let's just take a look. Blend operation, second layer. Okay, so this is just a 2-layer operation. That's not what I need. There should be another one. Summed blend or weighted blend? Weighted blend, that's what I want. So delete these guys. So the basic idea here is that the weighted blend is going to have 4 weights. It's going to have 1 weight for each of the layers. Good news is that RGBA happens to be 4 units. So we've got this break to components. We're going to need the opposite. We're going to need components to color. Nope, that's not it. So what's the opposite of break to components? Append. There it is. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use this with X and Y to start with, and we drop this in here. And you can see how it already gives us 4 because this is a 4 long vector. So that's why we're going to use 4 overlays. Now, in order for this to really work well, we're going to want to make sure that we can just grab and copy all of these, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to just copy and then paste, and then paste. And again, these are all going to come down into the layers. We're going to want to rename all of these overlays just because they are currently not named the correct things. This one's going to be overlay 3. This one's going to be overlay 2. This one's going to be overlay 1. And this one's going to be overlay 0. I could also call them overlay XYZ, but this is fine. So we also need to rename those colors that we're doing. So it's going to be overlay 3 color. Just copy this. This is going to be overlay 2 color. This one's going to be overlay 1 color. And this one's going to be overlay 0 color. That should be fine. Rearrange them over here on the side so that they're all in the correct order. Like so. And then combine these alphas. Doop, 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 doop. And then bring in those layers. Doop, 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 doop. Then we can delete these. Can we do more than one? No, okay, so the max doesn't take more than 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this down into layer 1, but we're going to do another break into components over here. And take that alpha channel. Oh, dang it. There you go. There we are. So now we have 4 of these, and we end up taking the final alpha channel as our layered blend. So we'll just hit save and see whether or not things work. They seem to have worked. So the reason I keep opening and closing that window, by the way, is because the way that I can't shrink it, so I had to close it. Now what we've got is a problem where all of our colors are completely opaque, which means that our null textures here are just garbage. So we're just going to bring all those alphas. Oh, interesting. It's still black. Why is it still black? So it looks like we have a problem where that final alpha is considered opaque. All right, so we're going to edit that. So this problem here is that it looks like this weighted blend is ending up creating an opaque layer. The alphas are ending up as completely opaque. If we come back over into our game world for a second and we zoom in on these egregious lips, which currently look pretty racist. Sorry about that. Give me a second. But the problem here is that, let's just go ahead and use the scar instead. So we bring the scar in. So there's the scar. But you can see that this scar is considered opaque, even if we drop the alpha down. It's opaque, not... That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So this problem here is that it's just that this A is breaking. It's considered opaque regardless, which is presumably because there's no base layer, so it's getting screwed up. What we really want to do is find the max of all of these alphas, but there's no max that allows for an arbitrary number of inputs, so we're going to need to take a couple. So copy, paste, and paste. People are talking about all of the stuff they're doing, which is nice. I use an Intuos as well, by the way, so I don't know about the new generation Intuos because for some reason a company that is supposed to be all about prestige is creating shittier hardware, but the old generation Intuoses are great. Let's try that. What's going on? Oh, no, that should be fine. What's going on here? Why is this not working? Trying to think of why this is breaking. These alphas should work. No. You know what? Let's go and let's break this into components. We're going to do some debugging. Break this into components, and then we're going to append it. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our blue our Z. And that way we should be able to see our alpha. Our alpha is now blue. So we should be able to see whether or not this looks blue. There we are, it looks blue. So that is as blue can be, which means that for some reason these alphas are showing up as completely opaque. Did I miswire something? No, those are all just alphas. There are no... Why did this work when I didn't use the append? Let's just use this guy and see what happens. So right now I'm using the third layer, the third element. There's something wrong. Even at 0 alpha, it's still using... Oh, I've got a network error. I'm going to reload this page here. So people are talking, but I won't be able to see what they said because, once again, Twitch crapped out. But I don't think it interrupted the stream. I think it just crapped out for me. So what I've got is a layered blend where I'm taking this weight in as the primary weight. We're going to make that green. And we're going to just debug it and see whether or not this turns into green-blue. Okay, so yeah. This alpha is apparently opaque. Why is this alpha opaque? The overlay color, RGBA, and then the overlay RGBA. I'm multiplying them. So this A of 0, or 0.08, I guess, should be 0. I don't know why it says 0.08. Maybe if I switch these over from being HDR into being normal. HDR wasn't getting me anything in this case anyway, because the whole reason I wanted to do that was for the strange alpha stuff I could do, but it looks like that strange alpha stuff might have ended up causing me some issues. No, it's still 0. So this alpha here should be 0. Let's test it. We're going to make this red. Relin says that I'm just an idiot, but I'll need him to tell me what the heck's going on if he wants to say that. Wait, now it works? Mifa says it's a shame I can't use HDRP's skin SSS matte. Yeah, so I've got plenty of those, but they don't offer me enough flexibility to put in layers like this, and they're really only good for close-ups. So I don't need them. I'm not doing any close-ups. But the Raylan says you don't need all that stuff. Not that you're an idiot. I wouldn't be here. No. What do you mean I don't need all that stuff? Should the weights all be 1? Because they're already pre-alpha'd, right? Yeah, let's go ahead and... I think that might be... I think that probably was it. So let's delete this, and then we're going to bring this back to this, and then this back to this. Yeah. So the problem was that I was an idiot. I was trying to multiply by the alpha twice, and it was causing me some issues. Not sure why it barfed out to maxed rather than minned. Maybe I divided by 0 or something. Either way, now it should work. The Relin says this will be portraits. No, all the portraits are going to be animated. They are going to be small, but they're all going to be animated. So I can't just take snapshots and then overlay overlay something. They're also all going to be different camera angles. So we're going to go ahead and test this by adding back in our scar. There it is. Is that the same scar? I think so. Yeah. Exciting. All right, so everything works. It's all good. If I increase this alpha, it turns into a blood red, which doesn't really look like a blood red. It looks like a pink. But I guess... Is it being multiplied? What happens if we try for a white? Okay, so as you can see, this layered blend isn't giving us the kind of opaque response we used to get. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Overlay 3's color is bleeding over. No? Yeah, there's definitely some color mixing going on here. What's going on? I am so confused. Why is this hard? Does the weighted blend not work on a per pixel point, but instead... Or is it taking the value regardless of the alpha? This weighted blend seems to be an issue. I think this weighted blend is causing us problems. There's not really any other choices. We could do a layered blend. which has a layer base. There's no vector 5. But if there's a vector 4... Oh, I'm just an idiot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to put them into it straight. What's going on here? Oh, there it is. So then we just drop in each of these. I'm not being specific about the lips. I'm being specific just about the fact that it's screwing up. The lips are hard, and that's why I'm focusing on them. But if they're screwing up, then I can't just let it continue, right? So let's just see whether or not this works without any further inputs from me. Save. No, it completely breaks. The alpha is the problem, so I think what we're going to have to do is use an append. With these alphas in to their proper spots. Don't think we need these anymore, though. Ah, perfect. All right, we fixed it. So the problem was that we were doing several layered blends, and it was like just not in the mood to cooperate. I think that the unlayered blend might be a little bit broken. But this is exactly how it should look, with this ridiculously pale lips and this ridiculously red head. Previously, we were getting a mix between the two, and that was not what I wanted at all. Obviously, we don't actually want these colors. They're just there for the sake of having a test set. And then we can just come up here, and instead of this bright red, we can bring it down to something like that. And then if we look at it in the game, you can see it. And that's the important part. All right, well that was fun, now wasn't it? So now we've got 4 layers, which should be enough for randomization purposes. If the player is building a character, they might want more layers than that, but too bad. I think that if I knew how to use a texture array, that would probably be the right option. But I'd have to actually have, like, files, apparently. And that's... I don't want to try and compile files at runtime. That sounds like it would be a travesty. But what we've got is a fairly decent setup. This is pretty close to the final shader we're going to use, I think. The things left for us to do are many. We've got to do animations, we've got to do bone morphs. We've got most of the face morphs, but we're going to need to add some more, mesh shape keys. We're going to need hair. And hair is still a sticking point because I still don't know how to do it. I do know how to do it, but I don't know how to do it in Blender. So I'm going to have to try and figure that out. We might go with some very basic haircuts. But I'm getting hungry, and I didn't eat any lunch, so I think I'm going to stop now. Feel free to ask questions. I'm going to go and just do some silly little stuff here. Will I ever do interior level design again? I mean, probably not on stream. This game has no interiors. I might talk about it if I find a game that's compelling, but since this game has no interiors, I'm not going to have anything to work on. I really want to do a... so I played some Eastshade. And Eastshade is... it's a game that's theoretically about painting. The problem is that it struck all the wrong chords with me, just in the way that it was written. All the NPCs are obnoxious, and you're forced to interact with them. And you can't even paint very much. And the painting, when you do it, is really, really, like, just taking a screenshot. So, there's a lot of stuff I want to do that's inspired by the feeling that Eastshade gave me, without being anything like Eastshade. And I've also got something where I've got a design for a game where you roll houses, like you physically roll them into existence. And that would require interiors, but it also requires a lot of other stuff. I mean, that's a full game, so it would require exteriors and animal meshes and human meshes and all sorts of stuff. And every single one of these is an easy way to get distracted and lose focus. This tech stuff is a real slog, but we have all of the tech we need now. All that's left is to put it into the game. Now, there are individual pieces that we still need to do, like adding in animations and stuff. But all of that stuff can be done piecemeal. So it can be done as I feel, and it can also be done even after release. You can just patch in more. But for the sake of taking screenshots, we're going to go ahead and drop in some more scars. And then we're going to make them all sorts of fun, opaque colors. And then we're going to move them. Why is one of these scars not like the other? Why is one of these scars not the same? That's not the scar. I guess it's because it's darker. So we're just going to go ahead and copy it, and then we'll just paste it in. Oh, God damn it. Yeah, that's fine. And let's bring the camera in to an angle where you can see what's going on, just for the sake of screenshots. Oh, sorry, I looked away for a second and the Relin said some more stuff. So if you're looking for interior level design guidance, I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I do have quite a few videos on my channel about it. I think they're just under the level design playlist. Interiors are all about being modular for me, and for that I recommend that you watch the one I made about the space game. There was a short little space game that had really excellent modular interiors, and that's an achievable goal. So there are people who don't like modular interiors. They think that they feel fake or whatever, but those are as an indie dev, those are what you're going to need. You're not going to be able to create custom interiors, so you're going to need to do modular interiors. And there's a lot of other level design things. I did one on Life is Strange where I talked about the basic ideas of things like O shapes and L shapes and stuff like that. And you can look that up on my channel as well. Mifaz just mentioned it as well. I don't recommend watching all 30 episodes. I recommend just watching the one about level design. And let's go ahead and paste this in. Oh, I guess we should have the head selected so that you can see. Doing multiple overlay layers. There were some bugs, but now there aren't. This is a close-up of a face that will never have a close-up, since the game portraits are small. Paste. Indie dev. Screenshot Saturday. There we are. Hurrah! Thanks for hanging out with me, you two. Hopefully I'll see you next Saturday or on Wednesday. And I think we're ready to start plugging this thing into the main game. It's just a matter of dragging it over into the right directories. Should be easier than you might think. So on Wednesday, I will actually put this character into the game world, and your crew will actually have faces. I hope.